The very fabric of Elden Ring's universe is built from one simple principle: opposites, or duality. Naturally, these opposites create friction amongst themselves, a never ending war of dominance that creates homeostasis within the universe. From cosmic elements like the two and three fingers, Tree and Shadow Tree, to the war between the ice dragons and fire giants, to alabaster and onyx lords, all the way down to the gold and silver scarabs. Everywhere we look within the universe of Elden Ring, we find opposites. However, it didn't always seem to be that way. In fact, we know that one very specific event was the beginning of these warring opposites.
An affair from which gold arose. And so too was Shadow born.
The ancient history of the Lands Between was a place lacking any opposites, lacking any order. Now, I don't want that statement to be confused with chaos. A lack of order does not equal chaos. Because there's no element or definition of order, there cannot be its opposite. There cannot be chaos. You can't have light without dark. You can't have up without down. What I mean by lacking any order is that things just were. No order, no structure, just a nebulous concoction of everything. This is the beginning, the foundation and the breeding ground for everything to come. This is the crucible. Surprisingly, the crucible is one of the very few concepts within the lore of Elden Ring that offers a plethora of information. Almost too much information, like we get it. It's where all life was blended together, the primordial form of the Tree, way in the ancient past. We get it. We're good here, FromSoft. You can move on to something else. We don't need 30 items telling us the same thing. How about we get 5 of these, and maybe 5 items talking about the Elden Beast, and some more information on the Glow-Eyed Queen, or something, anything about Radon and the Vow, anything. Anyways, there are a few item descriptions that basically give us all the information we need about the Crucible. In an age long past, before this land was enshrouded in shadow, the vitality of the Crucible flourished. A giant mass of intermingling crucible attributes, rumored to have sprouted upon giants and is known as the Mother of Crucibles in ancient tower lore. Helm worn by Devonia, longest serving of the Crucible Knights, holds the power of the Crucible of Life, the primordial form of the Tree, strengthens aspects of the Crucible incantations. It is said that Devonia quested in search of the Crucible's origin, and departed from the lands of the Tree alone. With these few items, we can gather the following about the Crucible. 1. It's a place or entity or force of nature, whatever the hell it is, that lacks any order. The creatures coming from the Crucible contain all manner of strange, unorganized aspects: feather, horn, quills, tongue, breath, etc. Again, this isn't the same as chaos, because order is not yet a god within the universe, neither is chaos. Things just are. 2. The Crucible is the very ancient past, the beginning, the very foundation of life and everything we see in-game. It's almost like the Crucible represents the concepts prior to their form. 3. The Crucible had its origins in the Land of Shadow, as evidenced by Devonia's helm, which makes perfect sense. I mean, just look at the place and what the ancient cultures worshipped. So what happened that made this world, of just being and existing, to what we see today, a world of warring opposites? The short answer is Marika. The long answer is the following video, where we will be talking about the original sin and how it came to pass. By now, we all know Marika's shaman origins and the horrors that occurred at Bonnie Village. But what we don't know is how she rose to power, what is happening in this trailer, and the original sin that Mikla is trying to wipe away. Let's start with the original sin, as that will give us context to answer the other questions. I believe the original sin is Marika splitting herself into gold and shadow. I mean, just look at what she has to do to make that happen. In other words, I believe she splits herself into the qualities she accepts and those that she rejects. By splitting herself into accepted and rejected, she creates an entire world, an entire age predicated on opposites in their unending war. I believe this is exactly what the two fingers represent and why each Empyrean is given a shadowbound beast. The two fingers represents the dual nature of Empyreans. Even Miyazaki, in his official strategy guide interview, says that Empyreans have this dual nature. One of those is the nature that goes in the direction of their age. The other is everything that goes against that age. The aspects of themselves that is not totally in line with their possible godhood, gets relegated and suppressed into their shadow, quote-unquote gifted to them by the fingers. Just like the Erd Tree has a shadow version where unwanted things are hidden and suppressed, so too do the Empyreans via their shadowbound beasts. Let's examine this further with the known Empyreans and their shadowbound beast. The first is Marika. She is all about life. She wants her kingdom to live forever. She becomes Marika the Eternal. That's a pretty simple one. The only thing that goes against that is death. Malekith was a shadowbound beast given to his Empyrean. Marika's sole need of her shadow was a vessel to lock away destined death. Malekith's only job is to keep death out of Marika's age. It's the only reason he exists. Up next, we have Ranni and Blythe. Ranni's age of stars is cold, lonely, full of fear and doubt, so naturally her shadowbound beast would be warm, kind, compassionate, proud, confident, and brave. Everything that goes directly against her possible age. There's another aspect of shadowbound beasts which is very important. E.G. tells us of this important fact.
I presume you've spoken with Blythe? Very well. There is something you should know. The two fingers gave Blythe to Lady Ranni as a faithful follower. Her very shadow, incapable of treachery. But if Lady Ranni, as an Empyrean, resists being an instrument of the two fingers, the shadow will go mad, transforming from a follower into a horrid curse. But such is his destiny. In such matters, Blythe's own thoughts hold no weight. It pains me so. But he must be neutralized, for Lady Ranni's sake.
Here's where things get really interesting. Miquella and Malenia. I believe Malenia is the shadowbound beast of Miquella. There are a few clues given to us that point us in this direction. One is that shadowbound beasts are often referred to as the siblings of their Empyreans and are given to them at a young age. Malekith, Queen Marika's loyal half-brother, bore a blade imbued with destined death, and there was not one demigod who did not fear him. Not only that, but the shadowbound beasts are the loyal blades of their Empyreans, and we've all heard that famous quote a million times by now. Lastly is that Malenia is the opposite of Miquella. Miquella is forever young and physically weak. Malenia is forever dying and physically powerful. This exactly mirrors the other Empyreans and their shadowbound beast. Marika life, Malekith is death, Ranni is cold and calculating, Blythe is warm and courageous. Now, this isn't a video about Miquella and Malenia, but there's one last thing I want to point out. When we enter Malenia's boss fight, she tells us that she has been in the deepest of slumbers. I suspect this is caused by Saint Trina, who we now know to be Miquella's other half. I believe he did this so his shadow, Malenia, would not come after him, because he is defying the two fingers. His final act before departing to the Shadowlands was to put his sibling to sleep, not only to keep himself safe from her wrath, but also to offer her some sense of peace. As mentioned earlier, I believe that the two fingers are meant to represent the dual nature of these possible gods. One finger represents the Empyrean, the other its shadow. I believe this is why Empyreans are given shadowbound beasts at a young age. They are the vessel that locks away anything that goes against their possible godhood. I believe this is why all Empyreans have one eye open and the other eye shut, because after this vessel of theirs, the shadowbound beast, seals away their rejected aspects of themselves, they are visibly scarred by this splitting. That scar is what happens to their other eye. It too, like their rejected aspects, is sealed away, suppressed. I believe Marika was the very first person to do this, the original. The sin that the entire Elden Ring universe is now predicated on. I'm sure by now you're asking yourself, hey, CT, what was all that crucible talk about earlier? Well, this brings me to Exhibit B of this story. Recall that the crucible lacks order. Not only that, but Marika herself wasn't always this way. Secret incantation of Queen Marika, only the kindness of gold, without order. I suspect that the crucible was this way because the very concept of order had yet to reach the lands between, which means the Elden Beast had yet to reach the lands between. Order is defined as the arrangement or disposition of people or things in relation to each other. Another way to think about it is that for things to be orderly, they must have its opposite. It is what gives things context in relation to each other. Like I said earlier, There is no up without down, no heat without cold, no life without death. Without darkness, the very concept of light would not exist. By providing opposites, you provide context and relation. You provide order. With that in mind, let's look at the trailer one more time. Marika reaches into something fleshy, something more than likely at least related to the Glowmite Queen. Out of this thing, Marika pulls out golden threads and creates her Elden Rune, the Rune of Life. The only way to get life out of something, like mentioned above, is to remove death. I believe what we are witnessing is Marika splitting herself into life and death, into Marika the Eternal, and the Glowmite Queen who wields destined death. Now, all of this is happening in a realm that we are not able to glimpse into, the psychological realm. Just like we don't see Ranni seal away aspects of herself into Blythe, we don't see Marika sealing aspects of herself into Malekith. It is true that Malekith seals away destined death, but it was Marika who did the splitting, albeit at the behest of the two fingers. By splitting herself, Marika in that moment creates opposites, the very first opposites, life and death. And by creating opposites, she also creates the very concept of order. She becomes the god of order. Looking back at that moment in the trailer, we can see these events take place. Marika splits herself, creating opposites, gold and shadow, life and death, which ends up becoming the lands between in the Erdtree, and the land of shadow in the Shadow Tree. She ascends the steps of the divine gates, announcing her godhood, an age of order. The Elden Beast crashes into the lands between, and that's when we get the gust of wind, the Elden Beast soundtrack, and the Elden Beast roaring in the background. Marika literally created the concept of order by splitting herself into opposites, into gold and shadow, into life and death. I have a suspicion that the person we are actually seeing in the trailer is the quote-unquote birth of Godwyn the Golden, and the sealing away of the Glowmite Queen. But that needs more time to cook in the lore oven. To reiterate, I believe that Marika was seduced into godhood by the Two Fingers. I believe the betrayal was the betrayal of herself because she locks away part of herself within her shadow. In doing so, Marika creates the first sets of opposites, life and death, gold and shadow. I believe these two concepts are represented in Godwyn the Golden and the Glowmite Queen, as well as the Erdtree and Shadow Tree, the Rune of Life and the Rune of Death. In this moment is the planting of the Erdtree seeds, and because they are mirrors of each other, this is also the conception of the Shadow Tree. By creating the first set of opposites, Marika invokes the greater will and births and or becomes the god of order, aka the Elden Beast. Remember, you can only have order when you have two things that have relation to one another. I talk about this concept in detail in my Elden Beast, Elden Ring, and Greater Will video, which you can find in the description below. Now, I know a lot of you are screaming or typing in the comments right now saying that the Elden Beast comes way before Marika, and we have proof of it. There's an ancient Elden Ring and Fair Missoula, and stuff happened before the Erdtree and Marika. But stick with me here. We know that Fair Missoula was struck by a meteor long ago. We know the Elden Beast, who is also the Elden Ring, was sent via a shooting star, aka a meteor, long ago. We know that Marika's godhood gave birth to gold and shadow. We know that ancient dragons have gold imbued within their scales, which is why the dragon cult can be practiced in Lindell. The worship of the ancient dragons does not conflict with the belief in the Erdtree. After all, the seal and lightning itself are imbued with gold. We know that Marika is the spiritual side of her union with Radagon, while Radagon is the physical side, as evidenced by their source seals. We know the Elden Beast has the same wound in its belly where Marika is wounded. We know that the Elden Beast only does incantations as a way to fight and uses Radagon as the physical sword, just like how they are used in the game. One spiritual, one physical. We know that Marika is a god, and when we defeat the Elden Beast, it says God defeated. It is undeniable that Marika and the Elden Beast are interconnected. Now, does this mean that they are the same exact being? I don't know, but they are connected. Whether Marika summoned it, created it, is possessed by it, whatever, they are unified. Probably the most obvious thing, which for some reason no one ever mentions, is that right below this ancient Elden Ring depiction is a young girl with two braids praying while being surrounded by three wolves. To me, a clear illustration of what we just witnessed in the trailer. A separation of gold and shadow, of order and chaos. If Fair Missoula is stuck in time, in the ancient past, And this is the depiction of what the Elden Ring looked like in that time. And we have Marika there. That proves she is ancient. She is here from the beginning. You wouldn't go to a museum of ancient Egypt and in the same display case have two very separate things unrelated to each other. No, they are related, showing the same thing from the same time. What this collective art is showing is the emergence or splitting of order and chaos, the Erdtree and Crucible, gold and shadow. We know that chaos is represented in the number 3. We know that wolves are shadows. We know that the Erdtree comes from the Crucible. The Crucible is the primordial form of the Erdtree. We know that the Erdtree represents the age of order. These two things, the statue and the Elden Ring, show us one clear story, the very birth of opposites, and thus of order. We know that Marika started the Erdtree. We know that the Elden Star's incantation is the most ancient of those derived from the Erdtree. The Elden Star's incantation also mentions the Elden Beast, which connects the Elden Beast to the Erdtree. This legendary incantation is the most ancient of those that derive from the Erdtree. It creates a stream of golden shooting stars that assail the area. It is said that long ago, the Greater Will sent a golden star bearing a beast into the lands between, which would later become the Elden Ring. Let's run this in reverse and see if it makes sense, with the end goal being the Elden Ring. Okay, to get the Elden Ring, you need the Elden Beast, which turns into the Elden Ring. To get the Elden Beast, we need order in the world. To get order in the world, we need opposites, which were not present prior to Marika's ascension. Remember, the Crucible is a place that just simply is. There's no order, no chaos. And Marika comes from this time. To get opposites, we need one thing to fracture into two totally different halves. The entity that fractured into two opposites, that's Marika. The law of causality and the law of regression put into practice proves that Marika has been around for a very, very long time.
All that there is came from the one great. Then came fractures, and births, and souls. But the greater will made a mistake. Torment, despair, affliction, every sin, every curse, every one born of the mistake. And so, what was borrowed must be returned, melted all away with the yellow chaos flame, until all is one again.
That's right. I believe Marika is the one great, at least in a microcosm sense of things, meaning that the fracturing of the one great happens on a galactic scale as well as an individual scale. Since the time Marika fractured herself and created the very idea of opposites, they have been warring. Everywhere we look, this duality exists. The entire world is built from this original sin. The Lands Between is quite literally the place between these two opposites, a battlefield for their ceaseless struggle, a place between accepted and suppression, those who get to stay in the golden light of the Erdtree, and those relegated to the Shadowlands. Everyone born under Marika's godhood is born of this sin, of this mistake. Gold and shadow, fire and ice, faith and science, order and chaos, inner god and outer god, Erdtree and Shadowtree, love and hate. Whether it's the frenzied flame or Miquella's quest, unifying these opposites and creating a sense of wholeness is the only true way forward. It's the only way to rid the world of the original sin, of the mistake. Both Ranni and Miquella seem to have understood this mistake and attempted to undo it. But Ranni made a fatal flaw. Sorry, Ranni Simps, plug your ears. Ranni kills her shadow. Actually, we do it at her request. That doesn't mean she didn't love Blaidd or didn't care for him, but she remains fractured. She remains half of a whole. To fully undo the original sin, one must embrace and heal their shadow. They must embrace the whole of it. A video on the endings and what they represent is in the pipeline, so be sure to subscribe to not miss it. Before I end this video, I want to quickly touch on Miquella's quest to bury the original sin and embrace the whole of it. To be whole, one must embrace their shadow. Miquella wants to embrace the whole of it. Compassion for all. He's not trying to get rid of order, but is trying to heal the malevolent nature of it. We talked about why he gets rid of his flesh in my Radagon's origin video, but why does he get rid of his love? If he has love in his heart, then he must have hate in his heart as well. You cannot have one without the other. Love and hate are no different than accepted and rejected. So he makes the ultimate sacrifice because there is no room for hate in an age of compassion. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving it a like and subscribe to the channel. These scripts and videos are flying off the page, and there are lots more to come, including Marika the Shaman, Mikola's Quest for Wholeness, and the endings explained. As always, much love, and I will see you in the next one.